So one repeated question is something like this, and this has been asked. It's a pretty famous question over the last decade. It's been asked in many companies. So you have an array. We are trying to log some information inside a for loop. So I less than array dot length plus plus. Now we have a set timeout here, and then we write something like this. So log of I and array of I. And the second argument is I into 1000. So generally it is asked what the output is going to be. So it's natural for a lot of people or beginners to actually state something like this as the output as 1, 0, and then 2, 1, and then 3, 2, then 4, 3, and then 5, 4. So this is a natural thought process because we are like, okay, this is just logging some information. There's array of I and I. So when we run this, if you look on the right side, that the value being printed is undefined 5, and the value starts from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It runs 5 times. Sorry, that's what I meant. So the answer here becomes undefined 5. This is what's expected. Value is undefined 5 into 5 times, and each comes at 1 second intervals, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 5 seconds, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds. That depends on the value here. So why does this part come correct? Because the value of I into 1000 is translated or executed at the time itself. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is being passed directly at that point, or 0, 1000, 2000, and 3000, and 4000. But what happens here is that this is a function, so it's a callback. So by the time the callback is executed, the value of I after for loop is 5, and that's the reason we get undefined 5 5 times, right? So how do you fix this issue? Now there are many ways this pattern can be asked, and this question can get different ways. Even if you just answer this question, sometimes they might ask you different variations of the same question. So one is to use something called an if, which is nothing but a function that we execute, right? So we write something like this, which returns another function. We write console.log of array of I and then I. So the idea here is to make it a local scope. So let's take I on the parent function here, and we'll invoke I here. So this output should give you the actual or the right answer. The reason being that this becomes a local scope right now, where the value of I becomes a local scope. So this is through closures that is being resolved. The another variation of the same question, not sure if it's you may get this, is to have a separate display function, and let's pass in an I there. So let's say set timeout of console.log, and then we pass in array of I, comma I, and then I into 1000. So instead of calling the set timeout, we can call in display dot call, and we can pass in the array as context, and we can pass in I as the first argument. Let's change to this. So in this case also, you may get a question. So here also you actually get the right output. And the reason being is that the value that you're passing in is locally scoped to this function. All right, so at the time of invocation of this, it is locally scoped. Now, there is another way this actually gets fixed easily, and that is by changing this to let. So if you use let, we would get the same answer also. So what let does is that it becomes locally scoped. Because it's locally scoped, the moment it goes out of this loop here, I becomes out of scope, and uh, the value of I is being stored into a closure scope, right? So at that point, the actual value of is being stored, and that's why we get the actual answer. So this tests a lot of your uh, concepts, primarily closures, scopes, event loop, and maybe a bit of call, apply, bind, or basically functions. All right, so